Many times we see the abundance of others and it can seem so far away, so out of reach, and unattainable for ourselves, but that could not be farther from the truth. See, there is one common theme among everyone who has been blessed with an abundance and able to maintain it, and that is that they were very good stewards and faithful over the little things in their lives first. The greatest man of all time said that if you can't be trusted with little, then you cannot be trusted with much. So here's an encouragement to you. The inverse of that statement is true. If you can be trusted with little, then you can be trusted with much. And we all start with very little. So no matter what stage of life you are in, if you make the decision to start stewarding the little things well, the abundance will come upon you so quickly that it might be overwhelming at first. And how do we know? Well, to answer that, we got to talk about this wonderful garden right here. Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Gerald.
I'm Simone.
And this here is the first Beyond Organic Garden. And it is owned by Mama Black, Simone Mama. Well, she renamed it. She likes to call it the Restoration Garden. She'll tell y'all more about that in a second. But this little garden here is where it all began. This garden represents so many principles, so many blessings. It personally serves as a memorial to like the faithfulness and trustworthiness of the Lord. This thing is very significant here.
There be no life on Promise You Acres without this garden.
Now, for y'all to understand the significance of this garden, we got to go back in time just a little bit. Now, I built this garden back in 2020, and it was like the first big step of faith that I made. It was like the first implementation of the direction that the Lord was calling me and telling me to go in. You know, He had told me this about a year prior in 2019. Now, in 2019, I was in a bad spot, fresh out of college. I'm broke. I ain't got no sense of direction, depressed as ever. I'm seeking the Lord, feeling like I can't see Him or sense Him or anything. Like I was down bad. I was like broke in all senses of the word. But most importantly, I was poor. I was poor spiritually. And you know when you poor for something or like when you're lacking in something, nothing is more important or like more obvious in your brain than that thing that you're poor or you're lacking in. It's like you're constantly searching and toiling and trying to figure out a way to get that thing. And being poor in spirit, I'm just like desperate, like longing, needing like the presence of the Lord in my life. I had experienced His goodness before, and then I went through some stuff and it felt like I was cut off from it. And nothing else could compare to the goodness that I experienced from Him. So I didn't want anything else. I knew if He would reach back down and would make me wealthy again in that sense spiritually, all the other stuff that I was lacking in and poor in, that would take care of itself if He would just come pour back into me. So one day I'm sitting, I'm chilling in bed, whatever, and this thought comes to my mind to plant a seed. And I mean, it's a small thought, a tiny thought, like passing thought. I very easily could have overlooked it and been like, eh. It was like you walking down the street and you see a penny and just step over it, like you just keep on pushing. But I was so poor spiritually that I stopped and I picked up that little penny and I put it in my pocket. I was in such a spot where like literally any little thing helps, okay? In the midst of my struggle, in the midst of my poverty, the Lord had just walked by and He dropped a little bit of change in my cup. And then He stepped back to see what I would do with it. So I get up, I grab these seeds, I plant them, and then I basically forget about them. I neglect them for a couple weeks. And I get up one day and I'm getting ready to throw the cups away, and I get the thought to just scrape a little dirt out of the way and see if the seeds had even sprouted at all. Look, I scrape some dirt out of the way and I see some sprouts poking up. I was like, oh shoot. That random thought, oh, the Lord had walked back by again. At that time, He put a couple dollars in my cup. So I run downstairs, put some water in them, and I'm just looking up all these different ways, like how to take care of these plants. So just throughout that year, throughout that summer, I'm looking up how to take care of this. I transplanted them into these pots. And I was doing container gardening stuff for a while. And as I'm continuing to do my research and stuff on how to take care of this, I come across the Back to Eden film. That film right there, the Lord spoke to me so much in that film. I mean, it was wild. It was nuts. If there was any sense of doubt, and there was, that this is the direction that I was supposed to be going in, that film blew all that doubt out of the water. I mean, my soul went from down to like through the roof. Like it was insane. He walked back by again with that film, and he dropped like $10,000 in my cup this time. I mean, my spirit is I'm up big time. So I'm like, okay, I got to go out here and see this dude crib. Like I have to go see and experience this. I got to see what this is all about. So I fly out to Washington, and when I get out there, it's just as incredible as the film, if not more, since I was actually there. I mean, the presence of the Lord, I'm walking around, I'm tasting this stuff, I'm looking at it, I'm just experiencing all this once. I'm like seeing the characteristics of God and his goodness like displayed in a garden setting. I'm seeing him reveal himself through it all, and I'm blown. Like I'm just blown out the way. And while I'm out there walking around, he just started pouring this desire in me to take what I had learned and experienced out there, bring it back home, and like start serving people, serving the community and stuff with it. I didn't know exactly how, but I was like, I gotta do this. Like I have to do this. And as I'm leaving and heading back home from there, it started becoming clear the how I was supposed to do it. Like this other desire he started building up in me was to be able to build gardens for people and then educate them on how to maintain it. And in that maintaining it, they would not only be able to receive and reap a harvest and have an abundance, of produce, but in that they will also be able to see and experience the abundance of life and liberty that Christ offers and all the characteristics of God that he reveals about himself as you tend and work in and maintain a garden. Like it's just, you can't help but to start noticing something when you're out in the garden. You can't help it. And I wanted them to experience that at a personal level. I want people to experience that at a personal level. And I also wanted a garden like that for myself. But here was the problem. I didn't have any land of my own. I didn't have anything. I'm living at home. I don't have anything. But that was actually a blessing, right? Because it forced me to immediately start exercising that faith and walking in that call and in that direction. So I get back home and I immediately start asking people if they would let me build them a garden. And Mama Black was one of the people that said yes. And God chose her and her yes, in her land, her location, to serve as the perfect representation of the desire that he had placed in my heart of what I wanted to see and like how I wanted it to be done. I mean, he, to a T, it serves as the perfect example of it. So before we continue, I want her to tell y'all and talk to y'all about like her experience with it from the beginning when I first asked her if I could do this all the way up until now, because she was a little hesitant when I first asked. All right, Mama,
Yep.
introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Lonnie, Mama Black.
Mama Black. So I was telling them about you saying yes to me asking you to build this garden. So tell them about when I first came to you and asked you if I could build a garden in your backyard. What were your thoughts? What did you think?
Oh my goodness. My initial was absolutely not. Like, no way. I mean, I can flower garden all day, but I wanted no part of a vegetable garden. I didn't want to take care of it. I didn't want to water it. I just didn't want any part of it. But he broke me down. Like he just kept asking. And finally I was like, fine, you can take it a little section of the yard. Don't go past the patio and don't go all the way over to the fence. Like he wanted the whole yard. And I'm like, oof, I don't know. He even wanted to do like fruit trees. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's going to be like fallen apples and peaches all over the yard. It's going to be a mess. And I'm like, ooh, Daddy Black might not like that. So I'm like, you have to stay in these parameters right here. So he did. He didn't want to, but he did. And he jumped right on it because I think it was probably the next day or two. He pulled up with a truckload of dirt and some wood chips and he started planting. And then when things started to come in, it was just amazing, first of all. The way he did it, there was no tilling or anything like that. And I didn't have to do anything. It was just blessings just popping up out of the ground. And it was about that time when I think I decided to go vegetarian. That kind of solidified my decision to go vegetarian. But just to come out here and pick my dinner right out of the yard, it's just amazing. And in the morning, I come out here, I can meditate as I'm looking at the flowers and walking through the garden barefoot. And so I call it my restoration garden because it really does restore me. After a long day work, I come home, wander around the yard. I love it. Like, I cannot get enough of it. So now I plant anything. I'll try anything.
So what switched? Because before you said you didn't want to have to maintain it at all. Like, what was a turning point? We're like, okay, I guess
Yeah.
I'll.
So do you remember when you went to Washington?
Yes.
You went out to Paul's land
Mm-hmm.
and you brought back some of his vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you brought them back on a plane.
I smuggled them on across
He
the
had
plane.
a beet that was this big and a plum, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a water balloon. It was so juicy. But after I saw that, and there was proof, like he showed me the proof of what it could be like, without having to daily tend to it and daily water and all of that. So I'm like, all right, we'll see what happens. So that first year, I was kind of defiant. I'm like, I'm not going to water it. We're going to see. I'm not going to do nothing and we will see what happens. And the rest is history. Like it works and it's just abundant. Then when I started learning all the lingo, like I was just like, okay, I know what and then I started telling other people about it. So it's
Yeah.
just a blessing.
There was a point because again, one of my goals was, I would build the gardens for people. I would step back, hoping that they saw the blessing, the abundance, and they'll be willing to step in and take care of everything. And I started noticing each time I would come back, I would have to do like a little bit less work and a little bit less work and a little bit less work until eventually I'll just come over and pick her stuff and start eating it. I wouldn't have to do anything over here. She over here, like she said, I guess up in the morning, walking around, doing stuff. She'd be out here at night. We'll come over, walking around there, picking and whatnot.
I'm at the point now where I've outgrown the garden. Like the parameters that I set for him, like I have got now like 2 tower gardens, the green stalks, because I need more space.
Mm.
So
you said you like to come out here, just walk through the garden and meditate and whatnot. What does that look like, or what do you mean by that?
Well, in the morning I get up, I get my coffee, and I usually have an app that has my Bible verse for the day. And I play it on my phone as I walk through the garden. Usually I'm barefoot and I'm walking through, and it's just, you can't help but praise, right? Because you can see the abundance and just you can't not see God's blessing when you're out here. And it just, I don't know, it just brings me peace and I'm calm and it gets me ready for my day. Then when I come home from work, I need to be restored. So I come out here in the evening, and usually whatever I cook usually comes from there. At least half of it or some part of it comes from the garden. So
What are your favorite things to grow and eat from the garden? What's your favorite things to harvest? Like, what's your favorite part of it?
my favorite thing to grow are the cherry tomatoes because they're like just like nature's candy. I just pick those and eat them. But lately, well, this year, just my favorite thing to harvest has been the potatoes, just because you don't ever know like what you're gonna find, and it's like exciting. It's like Christmas.
Yeah.
You get in there and you're like, oh my gosh, look how big it is. But yeah.
Yeah. So what's it feel like, or explain whenever you do go through and pick and harvest things from the garden? Like, what's it like to see the fruits of your labor?
It does make me very happy.
Oh my, stop. Stop. Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
What in the world is this?
to go out and to harvest and to know that I can feed my family every Sunday with something out of that garden. Like I get to share that with my family. And I like to brag about it, like this meal didn't cost nothing today, or just to let them know, just look what you can do just on a daily basis. Like, and to be able to share that, like, it brings joy. Like, I really am happy when I'm in the garden. Most days I can go out there and do absolutely nothing all day. Just hang out, whether it's pulling weeds or pruning or whatever. I could spend hours doing nothing. I think the thing that really got me excited about gardening was his excitement, because he could talk forever about gardening.
All day.
And now we can talk forever
Yeah.
about gardening. I mean, he'll come over and I'll be like, "Come on, Gerald, let's take a tour through the
Yeah.
garden."
I
And
don't
we
talk much. I didn't talk much. When I get to talk about something I like to talk about, you'd be like, shut up. I will go on all day.
and I like to make you talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we go to the garden and do nothing, but we can spend a good hour out there doing nothing.
Just doing stuff. We literally just walk around out there just picking
Mm-hmm.
stuff, eating stuff, figuring stuff out together. Shoot, she'll ask me something. I'm like, I don't know.
Yep.
So we both sit there and try to figure it out.
Yep.
What would you say to someone that like thinks they need a whole bunch of space to grow a lot of food?
Oh, you really don't. I mean, the green stalk is one of the examples that you don't need a lot of space. But even if you could do like container gardening, you can grow tomatoes in a bucket. If you have a will, there's a way.
Yeah, y'all saw I ain't had no space. I gardened on other people's places. I ain't had nothing of my own. I just went around and asked folks. Just gotta ask folks. Somebody will say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Even if you gotta bug them a bunch, even
Yes.
if you gotta
Yes.
nag them. Thanks for trusting me.
Yes,
Thanks
Gerald.
for not completely shutting me out and telling me no.
Well, I was about ready to kick you out
I know you
because
were. Now, what y'all might be wondering is how did that little garden lead to all of this land? Now, y'all saw how that garden blessed Mama Black. And y'all know I wanted to bless as many people as I possibly could. But it started to become clear to me that not everyone wants the responsibility of maintaining their own garden. But that doesn't mean that they still don't want to receive from that abundance and taste and see the blessing of the Lord. So that desire of wanting my own personal garden to experience all of that grew into wanting a large enough garden so that other people could come and experience it as well and taste and see and everything. Basically, I wanted to have something like Paul had to keep it simple. And to do it on that large of a scale, you need a large garden. If you need a large garden, well, you need some land. Now, I always kind of wanted some land, but this like made it clear and purposeful as to the why behind the land. Like that, it made it clear to me. And then something happened that made it clear. Out of Mama Black's garden, out of that first step of faith, another idea came to me. During that COVID year, we had nothing to do. Moms had bought a little juicer. We would just go outside, grab stuff, play around, mixing up juices and making stuff, whatever. And I was like, now this would be super cool to be able to not just give people produce, but to create a product and potentially other products at some point where I know exactly what's going into it and I can be transparent with people about what's going into it and that they know it ain't a grift, someone just trying to get over on them and exploit their desire for being healthy. Like I'm actually putting good stuff into the product. I'm like, there's not many people out there like doing stuff like this anymore, and people want and desire that, and I can give it to them in a juice form. Like that'd be super cool. And I was like, okay, well, the scale at which I'm trying to do that at and the demand that would probably come with that, I'm gonna need a lot of land. Now y'all remember in the intro of the video when I said I'd explain how if you steward the little things well, an abundance come upon you so quickly that it might get overwhelming? Well, that's what happened to us. We were faithful and nurtured those little seeds of faith that he had given us. And what happened? The same thing that is demonstrated in all the nature around us. Growth happens exponentially. One plant will come up and it'll produce hundreds, if not thousands, of seeds. Exponential growth. He blessed our stewardship of a little and dropped us in a situation where now we had a whole bunch to steward. From living at home and a garden that's a couple hundred square feet to a house on 21 acres with a 13,000 square foot garden, it's a big leap. Y'all know the parable of the talents where the master gave to his servants 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent. And the servants with 5 and 2 talents, they did well with the talents that their master had given them. And when the master came back to collect on it, the one with 5 said, here, I went out and I've turned it into 10. The other one came back and said, oh, I've turned it into 4. The master said to them both, well done, my good and faithful servants, because you were faithful with a few things, I will put you in charge of many things. And what's the lesson there? In order to have an abundance, you have to be responsible first, because abundance takes responsibility. And unfortunately, many people just don't understand that at all. We always want the big this and the big that and the large amount of whatever. But we don't understand that if we don't know how to take care of those things in the first place, we ain't gonna have them very long and they gonna be gone. Think of people who win the lottery and end up going broke in just a couple of years. And also, there's a saying where if you took all the money in the world and distributed it equally among everyone, it would end right back up in the same hands of a few. Well, why is that? Because very few people clearly understand money and how to be responsible with it. They know how it works. And that is shown by the servant who was given 1 talent, because he took his talent and he buried it. He didn't know how to use it properly. He didn't know how to steward it properly. He buried it and said, And then when the master came back, he said, take from him who is lazy and give it to the one who has 10. Oh, if you can't take care of what you have, even if it's just a little bit, even that little bit will be taken away from you and given to somebody who can. So when you're praying for things, don't pray for more and a bunch of this and a bunch of that. Don't pray for that. Pray to become the type of person that can take care of and steward what you already have. And then having an abundance will naturally come as a result of being able to steward that little bit well. All of that is the lessons and the warnings that he just hit us with just in the past couple of days. He's actually been trying to tell us for quite a while, but we finally caught on a couple of days ago. So we figured we'll pass on the same thing to you guys. It is time for us, all of us, to start stewarding the things that we have in our lives well and in a way that is pleasing to the Lord. There's nothing I desire more than to come out at the end of my life on the other side and have him look at me and say, well done, good and faithful servant. For real. Hope this video blessed you. Hope it touched you. Till next time, we'll catch you on the next video. Peace.